Hi, Mark.
Hi there, Alan.
Tell us a bit about your book.
Ocean Gladiator. It's a strange title, but it's about my adventures for the last 12 years, diving particularly deep.
From what I know of you, Mark, you're a very interesting chap. The sort of diving that you do is very on the edge. Nobody does what you do. I've not even heard about other people do anything like what you do. What is it that makes you go to those depths and feel so comfortable at?
Just lots of repetition. I've been diving below 150 metres now for 12 years. So once you get comfortable in doing something, you can just dive. Often, I've dived maybe 18 times below 150. It's not the sort of thing I would have to work up in doing it. By doing it for a decade, you just become able to do it relatively safely.
Do you think that with technology now it's a lot safer, or is there still a large amount of training still involved to get to those depths?
I suppose 90% of the danger is diver error. Very seldom is it the equipment that's killed anybody, with the exception of maybe some complicated rebreathers which the user didn't fully understand. But I dive generally on open circuit, and I'm fully happy with that kind of technology. There's not a lot that it could throw which I wouldn't be able to deal with.
Would you ever move to rebreathers, or are you 100% open circuit mode?
No, I do have rebreather ratings for several units, so I'd only use them for their design depths, really, maybe 60, 90, 100 metres. I know people are diving them deeper, but they do it as safely as a deep air diver.
The book is a very deep diver sort of type of book. Would this sort of help somebody who wants to become a deep diver? And do you think that you've kind of, in terms of the personality, the mindset involved in deep diving?
Absolutely. I mean, anyone thinking of going deep diving might want to read it. They'll find out what happens when these things go wrong. Very seldom do you get to read about when a technical dive doesn't go as planned, but in here you'll see many technical dives. Maybe some of them don't go right, and I've put down in as plain language as I could just exactly went wrong and why. So if you read it, then you'll pick up a pretty good understanding of tech diving. Next
week you're going to dive the Yolanda 200-metre dive.
Yes.
What sort of preparations would you make for such a dive?
I'd like to do some deeper dives just beforehand, just to make sure that support divers are awake, run through the dive plan with them. It's not a dive I'd think too hard about doing. It's in the Red Sea, which is very pleasant diving. The only concern of mine not the cold, obviously it's very warm out there. Just support divers bring the decompression tanks as and when. That's my only concern.
Yeah. Well, I hope you bring some footage back so that we can see you at those depths.
That's the purpose of this dive, yeah, to get a couple of video cameras down there.
Is there another level of complexity when you're kind of diving deep with the camera? I find it particularly hard to dive deep with a camera, and especially when the marine life gets quite interested in it.
Diving deep with a camera, that's one thing where technology's helped. 5 or 6 years ago I had a camera which was rated for 300-metre dives, and that was almost the end of me every time I used it. It was so big and bulky and made of like big thick aluminium sections that it was just a real nightmare trim wise. But nowadays with head mounted cameras and sub-miniature housings, it's a lot easier.
In terms of what you're doing in the future, what are your plans? Have you got any deeper dives, 300 plus plans, or are you going to keep it below 300 metres?
I'll try and keep on the shallower side of certainly 300. They're not vitamin pills, these dives. They're really bad for you. Even if they go right, there are long-term health implications attached to doing them on open circuit scuba.
Would you, Mark Chase has been telling me that you do a lot of sort of study of the effects of gases on the bloodstream. What have you been? Have you got any new ideas about sort of how that affects the body? Have you been doing any more research on decompression?
Yeah, sure. Since I've been doing this for a while and picked up lots of bends, it turns out that I think 9 times out of 10 it might not be the diver's fault when they get in the bends. It's going to be coming down to the software they're using to generate the ascent plan. And for the last 3 or 4 years, been working on what works rather than what should work, and we've developed our own ascent planning software, if you like.
Do you build a lot of deep stops into your ascent plans?
Deep stops is a bit of a buzzword for recreational divers, really. Deep stops were invented because people used to ascend very quickly.
Yeah.
If you're using helium or trimix, you shouldn't be ascending very quickly. If you ascend slowly enough, then there's no real reason to do a deep stop. So we'll have fixed ascent rates from deep water, which is quite unusual. But it's been quite successful using the techniques which I've been perfecting or trying to, there's been 5 or 6 sub 200 meter dives without incident, which is unheard of. There's no need to do a deep stop. I know recreational divers should be doing them because they end up often coming up too fast.
Yeah.
And it is good to make a pause on the way up. And if you want to call that a deep stop, then that's fine.
In terms of the deep diving that you do, what gives you the fear the most when you're on a deep dive? Is there anything that can scare you? What is it you look for? What is it that scares you the most about a deep dive?
On deep dives, I'm fairly happy with my performance on the way down. I carry enough equipment to get me out of any foreseeable kind of equipment failure. Support divers, some of them have to be there at critical times.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of times when we've been a couple of minutes apart, and that has caused certainly my heart rate to go up. Other times, what else can we have? The conditions. If we're diving in freezing water, the dry suit has to perform flawlessly. If it fails, that'll be the end of it.
Yeah.
Certainly if the water's less than 12, 14 degrees, which often it is. I've been diving in 4 and 6 degree water, and luckily there was no concerns of it getting in my suit. Had it been, it's something I plan to get out of the water quickly, get another suit on and get back down.
So to decompress.
Yeah, it would be a major, spanner in the works to have a failed suit. It's the only thing I can think that would be my major unknown.
How would you train yourself mentally? For me, deep diving is very much a mental activity. You're preparing yourself for anything to go wrong.
Yeah.
TDI training, what I've done, they rip your mask off without warning you, and they take the regulator in your mouth. Those things can happen. How do you prepare mentally for being at 200 meters, 300 meters, and those things happening? Because it's very scary when it happens at those depths.
I tend to practice a lot. If like this old adage, you train hard and you can fight easy, and it's a cliche phrase, but I don't do anything else but dive. So I would go and do a 5 or 6 hour dive just in 3 meters of water to find out how I'd feel with a flooded suit. I'd go and pull my neck seal in Raisby Quarry and try and stay down there for 4 hours, so I know what I'm going to feel like. There can't be any unknowns after these dives, because unknowns are going to occur and it could be the end of you just for something that you didn't plan for.
The Ocean Gladiator book is something that I really want to read. I haven't read it. I really want to read it. It's definitely something where I would look to go deep. I haven't gone to 100 meters yet myself. I would like to. I would like to go beyond that. I'm a rebreather diver. It'd be very interesting to see how I can what I can learn from here. And I think for me, psychologically, getting to that state of mind to handle those depths is very important. Yeah. That's what I'm looking for in this book. How can I psychologically, what do I need to be someone who gets to those depths?
By the end of the book, you should fully understand the implications of what goes wrong when you do these dives. And if you're not willing to ride in the chamber for 10 days and possibly risk a very serious injury, most people, they don't know anybody who's been seriously hurt underwater. But here, I've been seriously hurt. I've tried to explain how that happened to help you fully understand, because as you say, when you do a training course, you don't get to see what's going to go wrong. They just say your mast strap might break. I've never had a mast strap break, but what I have had are regulators fail. What I have had, suits failing. I've had high pressure nervous syndrome.
How did you feel after your 10-day recompression? I've done a 2-day, and that's long enough for me.
10 days in the chamber, I got to see a lot of movies. I was just laying there. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to really say how I felt, because I had this vestibular decompression sickness and my eyes were darting in my head constantly, and I couldn't move. The trips in the chamber did cure all of the pain symptoms I was suffering, but it was very unpleasant. I couldn't walk properly for 5 months afterwards. I felt obviously very down, and I was quite anxious to find out, if I could, what caused it.